Hello, welcome. Welcome to Forgive the Past. Your future is waiting. I am your host tonight, Courtney DiMatteo, and I am so excited to have you here. So I'll share a little bit about myself in just a moment, but my name is Courtney DiMatteo. I am a certified life and business coach. Tonight, we're going to be going over what can forgiveness bring, what is forgiveness, who needs forgiveness, and how to forgive. So before we go any further, I would really love for you all to grab a pen and paper. There's going to be many times tonight that I ask you to jot down your reflections, your notes, and starting right here with these questions. First question is, what inspired you to register? What called you to this program? I imagine that if you saw the word forgiveness, you probably have something that's standing in your way. You probably have something that's blocking you. So what is that inspiration? What brought you here tonight? Second question is, what are you hoping to get out of it? At the end of tonight, what would you really like to walk away with? Third question, what are you most looking forward to? Is there anything that you're excited to learn about? Is there anything that maybe you've been stuck on, something that's blocked you and you don't know what it is and you're hoping to be able to pinpoint it tonight? And our last question for reflection is, imagine your best life. What's stopping you right now from living it? What is it that's getting in your way? That's a big question. So jot down some thoughts and we'll see if any more thoughts come to mind as we go through tonight. So hello again, I am Courtney DiMatteo. I have all kinds of letters behind my name, as you can see. This is all the technical stuff that gives me the expertise to be able to get on tonight and share this information with you. But truthfully, what is most important is my story. That's why I do what I do. Without going into all of the gory details, I started right from childhood, years of abuse, physical and emotional. And then I did go through some years of therapy. And all of that led me to years of spiritual healing. From there, I decided to pay it forward. And so that's what really led me to becoming a coach and gaining the certifications that I've gained. Forgiveness. Freedom from the cage you've been guarding. I want you to imagine for a moment putting someone in jail, locking the door, and then standing guard holding the key. How does that feel? How does that image make you feel? Second scene, drinking poison and expecting someone else to die from it. Imagine sitting down at a table and you drink the poison and you're waiting for them to die. Kind of reminds me of a scene from The Princess Bride. And then the last scene, imagine that you have this beautiful garden and you've planted seeds and you have tended this garden. And you keep going out and expecting those seeds to grow, but they don't grow. And you finally figure out it's because you planted seeds in a toxic soil. So each one of these scenes is what it's like to hang on to resentment. And now imagine what would happen if you could hang up the keys, if you could put down the bottle of poison, or what would happen if you fertilized the garden? What could come of that? So let's consider for a moment this word resentment. What does resentment lead to in our lives? Well, it allows us to relive the experience. Thank you, resentment. I get to relive this over and over again. Everything that happened, I get to replay in my head. All of these toxic thoughts, negative energy of what I went through. And now I have to relive it over and over in my head. I'm trapped in this cage. It leads to stunted growth. So if you're someone who is in the world of personal growth and you're looking to become the best version of yourself, resentment will stop that. Resentment will stand in your way. Toxic thoughts. If you're hanging on to resentment, it will absolutely bring toxicity into your thoughts. If you check on your thoughts and you're thinking negatively, that reflects to you where your vibration is. It reflects to you where you're hanging out. And so hanging on to resentment keeps your vibration low. It can also lead to poor decisions. So resentment is a low vibration. Well, if we're in a low vibration, then the decisions we make are going to be low vibration decisions. We're going to be making decisions based on fear. We're going to be making decisions through anxiety, through depression. All of that is what happens when you're hanging on to that resentment. There's a quote that I absolutely love. When you get angry, stay angry, but don't bleed on those who haven't cut you. And that's what it is to take it out on other people. So if you're angry, if you're hanging on to resentment, it's very possible that you've been taking that out on somebody who didn't deserve it, somebody who didn't earn that. You're also punishing yourself for what someone else has done. Standing guard by that jail cell, doesn't that feel like a punishment to you? So because someone else did something, you're now punishing yourself. You're now exerting your energy in a negative way. It can cause physical pain and disease. Now, I'm not going to get into all of the science of that right now. And if you're interested, there are 2 books that I highly recommend. One is Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. And the second one is The Body Keeps the Score. Both of those books go in great detail as to how hanging on to negative energy, negative thoughts, negative experiences, negative emotions settle down into your body and get stuck there. And it actually turns your resentment into physical pain, injuries, disease. Okay. Think of cancer, think of arthritis, think of any type of autoimmune disease. These are all starting from stress, resentment, negative energy. It leads to your actions and reactions being controlled by someone else. Now, this one is huge. This one I don't like. What this means is that because someone else hurt me, because someone else did wrong by me, I am letting them choose for me who I'm going to be. Anytime I have thoughts of revenge, I'm letting them choose for me who I'm going to be. Anytime that I'm in a low vibration, anytime that I'm in anxiety or depression because of what somebody else did, I'm allowing their actions to control my behavior. They are dictating who I'm showing up as. So I have given my power over to them. Unintentional strains on current interactions, especially relationships. So what that means, I always think of Billy Joel's song, An Innocent Man. And if you ever actually look through the words of that, and I challenge you, go look up the lyrics to that song. It's an incredible story of someone who is standing up and saying, I'm not the one who hurt you, but because I know you've been hurt, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to hold you and I'm going to love you and I'm going to stick with you and help you to heal. So that's a story of someone who is in a relationship with unintentional strains because of what someone else put them through. And then the big ones, and I love my psychology terms, maladaptive coping mechanisms. What does that mean? We tend to lean into escape, denial, addiction when we're sitting in resentment. We're looking for ways to get away from that, to get out of it. It can also lead us into becoming the abuser when we've been the one who was abused in the past. So these are all coping mechanisms that we can lean into when we're hanging on to resentment. Something huge to consider is how resentment holds you back. Image that you have for your future, that amazing future that you're planning for yourself, that you haven't reached yet. It's not there because you're not at the frequency of that image yet. And resentment is one of the things that can be holding you down because it is keeping you at a low vibration. And that beautiful, amazing life that's waiting for you is at a high vibration. And the only way for you to get there is for you to match the frequency of the vibration of that image. And so if you're allowing resentment to fester inside of you, you are allowing whatever happened to you to keep you from living that amazing life that's waiting for you. So think again, why aren't you living the life that you want to be living? Go back to that question. So now on the flip side, forgiveness is what allows us to heal the resentment that's in us. And forgiveness leads to lighter, more joyful feelings. You're able to live up to your potential. Again, that imaginary life, that dream life that's waiting for you. It's not fake, right? It's there. It's real. It can happen once you change your frequency. Forgiveness also leads to you being more present for the people who matter. Think of all of the energy that's being stolen right now while you're waiting for this other person to come to you and ask for forgiveness, or while you're standing guard at that prison. Think of the energy that you're putting out there while you're planting those seeds in toxic soil, right? You're not being present for your life right now if you're hanging on to the past. Forgiveness leads to decisions made in faith. Remember, resentment leads to decisions made in fear. Now, once you've gone through forgiveness, you get to make your decisions based in faith because there's no longer this tether that's holding you back or holding you down. You have kinder responses. This is a big deal. In the world where road rage is commonplace, and I can speak personally to this at this point, my husband just a week or two ago, I think it was about 2 weeks ago now, was sitting in his work truck and someone got out of their car, mad at my husband for something that this other person had done, got out of their car, walked up to my husband and hit him, actually cut his lip, made him bleed. My husband had to get stitches, right? Now, I know that my husband did not do anything to deserve that. This man actually did it because of some resentment that's bottled up in him, some frustrations that are bottled up in him that he's not doing the work to heal. And so when we do our forgiveness work, that's no longer in us. And we can just allow the car that cuts us off, we can just allow them to go about their day. And we don't have to let them dictate to us who we're going to show up as. So our responses become kinder. Self-love, more confidence. This again comes with raising your vibration. It's an incredible, I'm going to say, side effect to the process of forgiveness, because now you're more forgiving to yourself. You're giving yourself grace. And by giving yourself grace, you come across as having more confidence, because you actually legitly have more confidence. The opposite of that, physical pain and disease, physical health, less stress. Imagine right now, what is your stress level? And what if you were able to let go of the luggage that you've been carrying around? What if you were able to set yourself free from the cage you've been holding yourself in? Doesn't that feel peaceful? Your actions are your choice. Again, this goes back to your actions are being dictated by someone else when you're hanging on to resentment, which means that through forgiveness, you now become more of your authentic self. You are now making choices for who you're going to show up as, rather than letting somebody else do that for you. Clear vision to others' intent. So this one, it's amazing when I'm interacting with people and I know my interaction is pure. I know my intentions are pure, but their reaction to me is based on something that they went through in the past. I can see it happen, right? So now with forgiveness, you're clarifying your vision. You're taking off lenses that have been holding you back. And now you can see that someone who's coming to you with pure intent, you can see that pure intent. Last one, healthy coping resiliency. And so rather than the escape, the addiction, the denial, you look for healthy choices. You look for healthy ways to rejuvenate yourself. You tend to be more in a self-care mind space. So which one do you want? Do you want to be tethered by this resentment, or are you ready to become free of what those chains are holding you back from, free to move into the life that's been waiting for you? So now we're very visual creatures. This is exactly where you're sitting when you're either in resentment or forgiveness. Put your face there. Imagine yourself behind those bars, because that's where you are when you're hanging on to resentment. That's where you are when you're in the mode of blaming someone else. And then look at the feeling that's being exerted through this second picture, the feeling of freedom, because that's exactly what happens when you're ready to forgive, let go, and move on. So what is forgiveness? This stumps people often. That quote underneath it, I won't tell them what they did was okay. That's what my clients say to me often when I say, can we talk about forgiveness? Well, I'm not ready to let it go because they haven't apologized to me. I can't tell them that what they did was okay because it hurt. But I'm here to tell you that that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not telling them that it's okay. Forgiveness is not letting them off the hook. It's not saying it's okay to treat you poorly. You know, my husband and I have this conversation a lot. He's watched me go through much of my own personal development. And he doesn't often enjoy my forgiving nature because he believes that I'm letting people take advantage of me. And what I can't get him to see is that what's actually happening is those people don't matter to me anymore because they're living on a much lower frequency than I am. And so as I've raised my frequency, I've been able to shed and move away from the people who wanted to hold me down. And so they're not taking advantage of me, and I'm not letting them treat me poorly because I'm the one who teaches people how to treat me now. I just don't have anything to do with them anymore. I've been able to walk away. I've been able to break the bondage, to break the chains. Forgiveness is also not forgetting what happened. So in my own personal story, one of the stories of abuse was actually a very dear friend of mine. We were so close. We were like sisters. We went on vacations together. We worked together. We were in just this really great friendship. And all of a sudden something happened. And to this day, I don't know exactly, but I know that it was something to do psychologically in her nature. But our friendship became very abusive and very toxic to the point of being physical. She actually went after me a couple times, and she went after me at school in front of our school resource officer. And he witnessed it, came up to me afterwards and said, you need to come down to the station with me. We're going to take a restraining order out on her. And my immediate answer was, no, I can't. I can't because we work together. Now, I've gone through an awful lot of work to be able to forgive that situation. That was one of the darkest times that I've ever gone through, to be honest with you. I've never forgotten what happened. She hasn't been let off the hook for what happened, but I have been able to see her since. And I've walked right up to her with a big smile on my face. I was able to stand in her presence and be my own person, not let her presence dictate who I am. I was no longer afraid of her. That's what forgiveness did for me. So forgiveness is trading perspectives. We have the perspective of being a victim. And yes, absolutely, I have been the victim of abuse. However, I'm also a survivor, and now I'm a thriver because I am working in a space where I get to help other people who are the victims of abuse. I get to help them trade their perspectives. So let's think about perspective for a minute. Imagine in your head, you're standing on blacktop and you have a piece of chalk and you draw a number 6. And now somebody walks up to you from the opposite direction and they're standing at that same number and they look down and they see the number 9. And you argue, no, it's a 6. And they say, no, it's a 9. Well, who's right? You're both right. That's perspective. You're both seeing the same thing, but you're seeing it from 2 different ways. Now, take a walk around that number. Take a walk around your number 6 to the other side and see the number 9. You have the ability to trade your perspective. And so we're looking at what happened to us from one perspective, and we're typically looking at it through the eyes of a victim. But now, being on the other side of these abusive situations, I can look back and actually be grateful for them. I can look back and say, wow, look at who I've become because of it, not in spite of it, but because of it. I can actually take a look at what happened and say, I'm a better person because I no longer allow people to treat me that way. I'm a better person because I advocate for myself. I'm a better person because I advocate for other people. I learned all of that because of what I went through. So am I grateful for the actual abuse? No, and I don't need to be, but I'm grateful for who I've become because of it. And that's trading perspective. Forgiveness is a consistent practice. Now, we have multiple scenarios of situations that happen to us. There's the one-time pain, the one-time thing that happened, the traumatic event, the traumatic experience. And that's going to take a consistent amount of time to be able to forgive somebody for that. But then there's also the repeating offenders. That's oftentimes family, right? The people who are in your life, who you choose to keep in your life, who keep reoffending. So you have to keep forgiving if you want to stay in their life, or if you want them to stay in your life. So forgiveness is a consistent practice. There's also the fact that if you're living in this world and you're interacting with other human beings, something is going to happen at some point that you're going to have to forgive. Just today, I had an issue with my son's school that I've been working myself through and putting my forgiveness practice into effect. So just because you've done this doesn't mean you're done. It simply means you now have a new practice to take on that's going to keep raising you higher and higher into the frequency that you want to get to. Forgiveness is separation between the person and the act. We forgive the person, not the act. Okay, that's important to remember. I'm not going to forgive somebody for harming me, but I can forgive them for being who they were in that time, in that space. And that comes from compassion. So that goes down to the next bullet, that act of compassion. Now, if someone is doing something to harm someone else intentionally, it's a really good chance that they too have been harmed and hurt in some way. And so if you're able to trace the thread back to their own experiences, their own traumatic experiences, you can find compassion for them. Again, it doesn't mean that what they did was okay. It doesn't mean that what they did was right. But by finding compassion for them, it helps you to move on. Healing for your human self. This is a huge concept, huge concept. We have 2 concepts within us. We have the spiritual self and we have our human self. I call our human self our ego. Your spirit cannot be broken. And now I can say this unequivocally. I've done a lot of work with soldiers who have come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and they come to me and they say, my spirit was broken from war. And I can very strongly say to them, your spirit wasn't broken. Your spirit is intact. I promise you, your spirit remains whole, well, healthy, loved, and loving all the time. It's your ego that was hurt. It's your ego that was damaged. And forgiveness is healing for that ego, finding strength in overcoming. Again, that goes back to the story that I told before about who I am now because of what I've been through, about how I can stand on my own 2 feet and be stronger, wiser, and more authentic because of it, looking through higher vibration lenses. So there are various levels in vibration. The lower the level, the more negative you're in. The higher the level, the more positive you're in. The higher the level, the better the things are that come into your world. So this is a really quick lesson on the law of attraction, but what's deeper than that is the law of resonance. And I think that the law of resonance really explains it better. Whatever level you're resonating at, that's what's going to resonate to you. That's what's going to come to you. And so as you raise your level of vibration, you're going to resonate better experiences to you. As you raise your level of vibration, the lessons actually become easier because it's not through horrific traumatic events anymore. It can be through easy things to figure out, easy things to go through. And so looking through a higher vibration lens allows you to bring a better human experience to you. Forgiveness is strength, freedom, looking to the future. Okay. We often think forgiveness is being weak. We're taught that. That's part of our programming. But what's weak about being able to look the perpetrator in the eyes and be your own self? Where's the weakness in that? That's not weakness, that's strength. When you can look them in the eyes and you can say, I am whole, I am loved, I am loving, and you don't have my permission to hurt me anymore. When you can do that, that's strength, that's not weakness. Now, resentment occurs, I had mentioned this before, when our ego self has been damaged. So it's our ego that can be harmed. It's our ego that gets damaged. Our ego is there to protect us. Now, it's often said in the world of personal development that the ego is bad, the ego is evil. And I'm here to tell you, I don't believe that. Not for a second, not by any means. My spirit self chose this body. My spirit self chose this life. My spirit self chose to come here as a human being because it knew that as a human being with an ego, I would grow and I would expand and I would learn so much faster and so much deeper than I could as a spirit self. And so my spirit self chose to have an ego. And I have a really hard time believing that my spirit self chose to step into something evil, being that my spirit self sees through the lens of love at all times. And so our ego isn't bad. It's not evil. It's not something that needs to be destroyed. It's not something that needs to be killed. You know, I hear so much about ego death. That's not what we're here for. We're here to heal our ego. We're here to heal the traumatic events or heal from the traumatic events, not to damage it further, not to destroy it. And then when we have this healed ego is this fascinating aspect of us because our healed ego is our motivation. Our healed ego is what drives us to success. Our healed ego is what asks us to live out this amazing human world, this human life that we've stepped into. And so when our ego, our healed ego and our spirit integrate and become friends and work together, that's when we're living our best life. So we have to keep in mind that that resentment that damaged our ego is holding us back from that amazing dream life that we're looking to gain. Our ego doesn't like to be challenged. It doesn't like to be wrong. It's happy to stay safe and comfortable. It can be damaged through negative experiences. So anything that tells the ego that it's wrong, anything that challenges the ego is motivated by fear. Or I'll rephrase that. A damaged ego is motivated by fear. And so if we look over to our spirit self that's whole, well, loved and loving all the time, our spirit self is what we can shift into with the practice of forgiveness. And our spirit self is what is sitting in the highest vibration possible at all times. Our spirit self is always living up there. That's in you all of the time. The ability to shift and to reach your highest potential is in your fingertips. The power is right there with you at all times. It's just a matter of, are you living in your ego self or are you living in your spirit self? And I promise you, your spirit self is the one that's doing the forgiving. Your spirit self loves living big. It's not concerned with human construct. What does that mean? Well, human construct is anything that we as humans have developed to keep us in our packages, to keep us in our comfort zone, to keep us on the conveyor belt of life. That's what human construct is. Government is human construct. Okay, that's a big one. Any type of programming that's based in fear is human construct. Language is human construct. Language limits us. It's wonderful in many ways, but it also limits us because there are many, many experiences, especially as you go through this spiritual awakening, there are many experiences that there is no word for, and we can't really talk about what we're going through and what we're feeling because this language hasn't been developed yet. We can't truly know God, or we can't truly know the power of the universe or source energy because we are limited by this language. Spirit is not concerned with human construct. Spirit can communicate in so many ways. Spirit believes in your power to live a higher potential. Spirit cannot be damaged. I promise you this. I promise you. It cannot be damaged. It is always living at that highest perspective, at that highest space, the highest frequency. Spirit is motivated by love. Spirit wants to experience the juiciest, biggest life that you're willing to give to it. So now the space of forgiveness occurs when our ego self has been healed and spirit is allowed to live into itself. We can talk for a minute about spirit and ego as head and heart, right? Think of all of the negativity that goes on in your head. And then think about when you drop it down into your heart. You can do this exercise really quickly. Think about someone or something that you love more than anything. One someone or something that you love more than anything. As you think about it, you're going to feel yourself drop down into your heart. And there's your spirit self. Spirit self knows pure love. Forgiveness does not exonerate the perpetrator. Forgiveness liberates the victim. It's a gift you give yourself. So consider that when you're having any kind of resistance towards forgiving someone, what are you truly doing? You are keeping yourself away from your freedom. You are not allowing yourself to be the sovereign being that you're here meant to be. Who needs forgiveness? What a topic. I always like to put in here, I work with people at all stages of awareness, all levels of awareness. And the person who gets the most tripped up here is the person who has already done so much work, because they get caught in an ego trap of, I am so forgiving and I've done so much forgiveness work. I have no one left to forgive. And I promise you that's an ego trap. I promise you that. So consider for a moment when your ego is saying to you, well, there's nobody left to forgive. You've already done all of your work. Remember that that's your ego talking. If you are a human being interacting with other human beings who also have these damaged egos running around, you have forgiveness work to do. And before we get into how you figure that out, look down at the picture here in the bottom left. This to me it represents so completely well the adult human ego, how we are so hurt. We are so caught up in our pain. And now imagine that right now, these are two people who are in an intimate relationship with each other. And something happened. One of them said the wrong thing to the other one, and it started this conflict. And now they've built such a wall between them because of their conflict, because of their argument, that they can't even face each other. And when they turn away, that's when they allow the pain to be seen. That's when they allow the tears to fall. And yet what's inside of them? These two inner children that just want to connect. They just want to be loved. Course in Miracles says every act is either an act of love or a request for love, no matter how unskilled the act. These two little children are asking for love. These two adults who are sitting back to each other, they're asking for love. They just don't know how to do it. Their ego is getting in the way. Their pride is getting in the way. So who needs to be forgiven? Again, take out your notebook that I asked you to get earlier, grab a pen, and start writing as I ask these questions. Now, as I ask these questions, somebody's going to come to mind. If I say, who are you holding a grudge against? And your mother comes to mind, and you say, no, I don't have anything against my mother. I'm not holding a grudge against my mother. I'm going to ask you to pause on that. And I'm going to ask you to write down your mom, because that would be your subconscious talking to you, saying there's something here. Now, it might be little, or it may be stuffed down. When I'm doing forgiveness work with my clients, oftentimes it's the people they love the most that they have the hardest time saying, I need to forgive them. But remember that, oftentimes the people who love you the most, they are able to hurt you, not intentionally, but because they're trying to love you so tightly that they're working through fear, and they're speaking through fear, and they're making decisions through fear. And that can in turn cause some kind of disconnect between the two of you. And so again, if somebody's name comes to mind, I'm going to ask you to write it down, and then later on explore it. And just say, is there something I need to forgive? Is there something I've been holding against them? And be honest with yourself. So who are you holding a grudge against? Who do you argue with in your head? That's a big one, right? We have these conversations in our head all the time. Is it you? Are you arguing with yourself in your head? Well, then that says you've got some self-forgiveness to do. Who's making you act differently around them? This is huge. I want you to really stop and pause and think about this one. Imagine yourself at a party. And you're doing your thing, you're being yourself. And then this one person walks into that party and bam, you're somebody else. You're withdrawn, you're constricted, or you are full of conflict. You want to be brazen and shove them down and knock them over, right? Maybe you go into another room and you hide, you're escaping. Who are you acting differently around? That is somebody that I promise you have forgiveness work to do. Who do you blame for holding you back? Now, here's a truth that I'm going to share with you that is hard to talk about. I credit my children, my son especially, for giving me the courage to leave the safety and security, and I put that in big quotation marks, of teaching, because I was a teacher at one point. And it was because of becoming a mother that I chose to leave teaching and I wanted to start my own business because I wanted the flexibility and the freedom. And I have this vision for my business being huge. And oftentimes I find myself blaming the fact that I'm a mother and blaming my kids for holding me back. Now, it doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it reasonable, but that's what comes to mind when I have this really amazing opportunity to go be a public speaker across the country. And I say, oh, who's going to watch the kids, right? I'm blaming my kids for holding me back. I have forgiveness work to do with them, and they don't deserve that. That, again, it doesn't make it true, but I have to honor where I am, and I have to honor the thoughts that are coming into my head. And so that's a hard one for me. Whose fault is it that it happened? Okay, think of life circumstances. And who are you pointing the finger at and saying it's their fault that that happened? Because of them, I did this. Because of them, this happened to me. That's somebody that you need to forgive. Who has hurt you, right? That seems so simple. Who has hurt you? Who are you protecting yourself from? This one was huge. When I learned about protection and the fact that I didn't need to protect myself, I could not wrap my head around that concept. Now, that might be the first time you've ever heard that, but I want to go back again to that idea of frequency. If I am living on a higher frequency, the law of resonance states, and remember, laws are absolute. The law of resonance states that whatever frequency I'm resonating on will resonate those experiences back to me, that level of experience back to me. So if I'm resonating on a high frequency, there's nothing to protect myself from. There's no need to protect myself. But when I'm living in a lower frequency, I find myself protecting myself from these other people, protecting myself from them coming at me, from them attacking me, from them doing things to me. So who am I protecting myself from? Who am I protecting others from? Now, I'll be honest, this one for me is a mama bear. Who am I protecting others from? I'm protecting my kids from certain people. Oof, that's forgiveness work I have to do, because with trust and with faith, I would understand that I wouldn't need to protect my kids from anybody because they're living on a high frequency. Kids can't help it. They're living on a high frequency far more often than I am. And so they're not going to attract the same things that I'm going to attract when I'm at a lower level. But if I find myself feeling the need to protect them, well, whoever I'm protecting them from, I sure do need to work on some forgiveness. What experience am I reliving that brings me pain? This goes back again to replaying that scene over and over again in my head. If I am replaying that scene over and over again in my head, then there is somebody there that I need to forgive. Maybe there's an experience I need to forgive. Maybe it doesn't have to do with a person, but it's an experience. It's something that happened to me. Who makes me contract when I think of them? Okay, this goes again back to who do I act differently around? If I think of somebody and I feel my body caving in, I feel myself going into protective mode, well, that's somebody that I need to forgive. And now the big one. There we go. What triggers you? This is a really big word right now in our world, isn't it? I'm hearing all of the time, you trigger me. You're doing this to me. That triggered me. I'm triggered. Well, guess what? Triggers have absolutely nothing to do with anybody else. A trigger is a memory of an event that is lying within you that needs to be healed. That's what a trigger is. So yes, somebody on the outside of me right now could push a button, they could trigger me and I will react. But that reaction has nothing to do with them. It's because they touched a button, they touched a nerve that is connected to a past experience that I haven't healed yet. And so what I know now about triggers is that when I feel triggered, my job is to say, what is this reminding me of? And what healing work do I need to do? So I'm going to stop the share, and I'd like to give you an opportunity, especially if you've had any kind of resistance to anything that's come up so far, any kind of response, reaction, reflection, feel free to put it in the chat. All right. Well, everyone have a lovely, lovely day, night, wherever you are. I know our time zones are all different. So wherever you are, enjoy. Look for your higher frequency. It's there for you. It's waiting. That dream life that you want to live, it's at your fingertips. It's simply a matter of shifting the inside, and the outside will follow. Thank you.